Today I want to cover two different price points to build out your first HiFi system. Well, I guess it may not even be your first. I would say a lot of people already have their main system and are possibly just intrigued or curious in some of the great budget buys that are on the market lately. And well, frankly, some of the not so great buys as well. So whether this is your first build out and you're just looking for some guidance, or possibly the seasoned vet just looking to add another smaller system in a second space, third space, I know how that goes. This is gonna cover two difficult price points, $300 and $500. I have a few speakers, a few amps, and a number of considerations that could make or break your setup in the future. Last thing you wanna do is build out a system today, and then end up having to clean the slate and start over completely the next year. I want to quick touch on some really exciting stuff I have going on the channel lately. I have some DIY projects in the works again, potentially a couple different speaker builds, and I'm putting out a video on how to make simple bass traps that actually look decent and won't require a wood shop to build. The goal is to be able to pick up items so you can more or less assemble these rather than have to build them, with all the tools involved. I also have a DIY speaker cable coming. That one did really well in the last time through. We're going to make some changes there. I have an absolute backlog of reviews to get through, and maybe the most exciting is that I'm gonna start freelancing for the Absolute Sound magazine. So this channel will remain as is, all the same content, but I'll also have some reviews showing up over at the Absolute Sound YouTube channel as well. The great news there is it's gonna open me up to some more possibilities and really get some more interesting gear and content for this channel too. So if you guys could send a subscription, a like, even a comment this way, it does make a difference. Even just drop in and let me know what's going on in your hi-fi world. Okay, so kicking off the $300 mark, and this is what I would call very entry level. Sure, you can go cheaper if you wanna go, strictly Bluetooth, go completely bare bones, but today's focus is gonna be on systems with just a little bit more flexibility. The point of focus in this area will be value for the money. At $300, that's kind of what you need to look for. Keep in mind, a lot of the gear I'm selecting today are solid picks in my opinion at their price points, but there's certainly room to mix and match depending on what you already have on hand. The most important part about this discussion today is thinking about what you prioritize in your setup and if it's leaving you open to upgrades in the future. Because realistically, you're probably going to eventually look at some upgrades. $300 is a difficult price point in my opinion, solely because of the speakers. The most basic issue is there's next to nothing to choose from under $150 to leave any budget for anything else. We used to have more options in this space, but over the last few years, a number of these have kept increasing in price, such as speakers like the Sony SS-CS5. At one point, people were finding these for under $100, and now I would say the norm is probably approaching $200. So I think we can do better than that. And another one off the top of my head is something like the ELAC BS41. I actually picked this one up years back for $77, and now it's listed at $180. Neither of these are gonna give you room to build out a system at $300, so we need to get creative here. Enough talk, a little more action. The cheapest speaker I can recommend at this price is the Dayton B65. It's $74 on Amazon, has a 6.5-inch driver, and has a decent build quality for the price. It does kind of sound like a drum when you beat on it. Take what you want from that. It has a 70s, 80s look, but it's also $74 and sounds respectable for the price point. This one even comes with speaker cables, so it's about as budget friendly as it gets. There's also a smaller version that is somehow even cheaper than this, but the $300 price point won't allow for a sub, so we're gonna go with the 6.5 today, just because that's gonna give us a little bit more extension. So now we're at $74 and we need a streamer, or even a streamer that can double as a preamp. So that's a pretty simple one and shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone here. We're gonna use the Weem Mini. It's $90, and with this we get all the, the Weem streaming software, all their integrations, Amazon Music, Tidal, Spotify. Basically, this thing has everything, including AirPlay and Bluetooth. This is gonna serve as the preamp, like I mentioned here, to fit that $300 price point, but it actually works well, and it even comes with the cables we need to complete this setup. We could have saved a bit more in this area with a few of the other budget streamers, maybe something from Aurelic, but the Weem Mini, it's only about $20 more than the next best thing. And really, the Weem has about twice the capabilities. So now we're at $164 and have $136 remaining. So the Fozzy ZA3, that one's out. That's $150 for a single unit. V3 monos, that's well over our price point since we need two of them. In my mind, we have a couple options here that gives you two different paths that you could take. Path number one, you could go with the Duke A5. It gets you a really good performing 3255 amp with PFFB and the ability to use a high pass filter, which is not a common feature on these desktop size models. It's not perfect, but at the $100 price point, it's my pick. Like I said, this one has a high pass filter so you can better utilize your speakers, an interesting trapdoor on the top here for swapping op amps if you're into that, that, as well as even some color changing LEDs if you want to match it up with something else in your system. The most important part for me though is it actually sounds really good, and it's $99. And so that's why it's an easy suggestion for me at this price point. If we're gonna look at the A5 a little closer, the high pass filter knob on the front could be better served in the rear of the unit, and it could also use some markings, so we had a little bit better idea of where we were at with the filter. But at the end of the day, it has the filter. A lot of people ask for these, so I'm really happy to see they're starting to, add these into these little lamps. If we go the route of the A5, we're left with $37 remaining for upgrades within that $300 mark. More on that in a minute. We can squeeze a little bit more out of this price point. My other suggestion would be the RSL A255.1. I prefer the amp chip offering in the Duke A5 a little bit more than this one from RSL, but it's another great option, and likely the reason I went this way is it also has a selectable high pass filter. This one's at 90 Hertz. It won't have the range that the A5 has where you can dial it in. This one's gonna be more of an on-off. It's gonna be 90 Hertz or full range, but it's still very usable. These filters may not come into play just yet as we can't fit a sub into this price point, but it leaves you open to an upgrade path. And the RSL comes in at $110, so $27 remaining. The good news about both of these options is it narrowly lets you sneak in a speaker upgrade. I have the Mica MB42X G2 here, coming in at right around $100. It's a really good performing little speaker, clean sound, better build quality and sound than the Dayton that I was showing you guys earlier, and in general, I think it's probably about the best you could do at $100. It's a refresh of the previous design if you've ever had any experience with the last generation. This one's noted to be a little bit more relaxed or less bright, however you want to lay that description out there. There's many that I haven't tested at this price point, but generally speaking, I don't think you're gonna be disappointed in this speaker at $100. This little guy even has a magnetic grill. This little speaker is honestly a bargain at this price point, and I'm really glad that I recently ran into this one because it gives me an easy suggestion for people right around this, really budget-friendly $99, $100 price point. So at that point, this keeps both amp packages under the $300 price point. But realistically, we need to go with the A5 over the RSL amp here if we're gonna be really strict with the 300, as the speaker change that we did from the Dayton over to the Mica, we lose the speaker cables that came with the Dayton, so we need to free up a little bit of coin, so let's call it here. The Mica MB42X G2, tiny price, tiny package, yet really good performance for the dollar. We Mini, no matter how you look at it, you're not gonna beat that one for 90, and the Duke A5 coming in for a total of $288. We have $12 remaining for speaker cables, so lamp cords it is, I guess. But realistically, this little system is going to overperform for its price. This is gonna be a fantastic first system for some, second, or maybe even, your 10th. I know how some of you guys roll, you have a system in just about every room. On to $500, and where the $300 price point had us a bit locked in, we can now open things up a little bit as far as options, but it's still surprisingly a bit challenging to find a balance of components here. Basically, you're gonna have to pick and choose what gear you want to take precedence here. Maybe even key in on some future upgrade paths that you think you're gonna go down. So while the $300 price point had us locked in on value for the money, let's get into more of the different upgrade paths here. We're gonna start with the amplifier and source selection on this one. We wanna spend enough to give us the performance we want now, but also a path for more potential upgrades in the future. And we can go about this in a few different ways. Depending on the options you choose here, it tends to compromise one area or the other. You're not gonna get both, but that's the delicate balance at this price point. Let's start with the obvious one. Just use a Wii-amp. It's $300, covers your amplification, your preamp, your streamer. It leaves you with roughly $180 to shop speakers after cables, and it gives you a remote, decent power, HDMI, which is perfect for the hybrid space, as in the TV is in your listening space. We get a better DAC, actually a lot better DAC than what's in the Mini that we were previously using, a phono preamp, and even room correction and a sub out with real bass management. This is why we're gonna start here. Others may have different opinions and preferences here, but realistically, nothing is gonna give you this much at 300, and it leaves a lot of different upgrade paths with all the different connections it has. A different option at roughly the same price would be the Weem Pro Plus and a Duke A5 that we were using earlier. You still get a really solid performance here, and it leaves you with more flexibility for swapping in amp upgrades or changes in the future. You still get a high pass filter, but miss out on connections like HDMI. It's a worthy option if you're the type that mixes and matches different amplifiers or foresees themselves getting the A5 now, getting it all up and running, and then moving on to something else in the future. This combo came in around $320, and you can see why these price points are difficult. There's always gonna be a compromise here. A third option here could be a dedicated integrated amp like the Cambridge AXA25 at 300. It's gonna get you that all-in-one unit, have an integrated power supply, no bricks hanging off of everything, and offer the most inputs, but it will be power limited and miss out on some of the future upgrade connections like a sub out. Plus, we still need to add a streamer on top of it, so that's gonna be another $90. Option number 4 swings you back to the Weem. You could just burn all the money here, spend $380 on the Weem Amp Pro, and set yourself up for upgrades down the road. This one adds PFFB, a better DAC, faster Wi-Fi. If you end up with this one, it could be the long-term center point of your system, and you could certainly do a lot worse than this. Now that I basically burned all the money on amps and streaming capabilities, we need to find speakers that still fit within the budget here. Let's start with option number 1, that Weem Amp at 300. So we have roughly 180 left for speakers when accounting for, picking up some cheap speaker cables. You could definitely still go the way of the Mica MB42X G2 and have a complete system right around $420. And then you could just keep the rest for a sub upgrade down the road. The other pairing option here would be like the Polk XT15. It's a decent speaker at $150. I used to have a pair, the XT20 though, and I think they're decent. The actual box on these is kind of cheap. They have a vinyl wrap on them, and it tends to be a little fragile and can peel up on the corners, but the sound is pretty good for the price. And then at that same price point, $150, we have the RB42, and that one's also from Mica, and I haven't shown you guys this one yet. I could suggest this one if you're looking to move into something with a little bit better build quality than the MB42X G2 or the Polk XT15. It's a rock solid little cabinet. It's very surprising how much this thing weighs. It's actually a really heavy little speaker. It has rounded edges, it looks really nice. This one also has the magnetic grille, just like the G2. The sound is what I would call a little bit more fun on this one in comparison to the G2. It's a touch more forward with a fat bottom, which a lot of people actually really enjoy. The MB42X G2, that one comes across a little bit more neutral. Both of the Micas could work here depending on your preferences. Not a lot of options fit this price point. Kano has a few, but I excluded them as I haven't had them in for a listen. And the Sony SSCS5s, which were once a simple suggestion building out that budget system, they really just don't fit the bill anymore, which is kind of weird to say. If this is me, I'm looking at this from 2 different angles. Either get the Weem Pro Plus and let's say the Duke A5 for an amp, and for speakers, it's kind of interchangeable as they all fit under the $500 price point. The Mica MB42X G2, the RB42, or the Polk XT15. This is going to be the build out where the Pro Plus is the core of the system, and the speakers and amps are the parts that are most likely to be swapped out in the future. Considerations here for the Pro Plus: it won't give you an upgrade path for a sub because there is no sub out on this, so you won't have that bass management. But you may still be able to get that sub out through the amp selection like the A5 offers. What I would suggest here at this $500 price point, assuming you don't plan to make an amp change in the near future, is to just go with that Weem Amp Pro. Get the extra features, the extra hardware, the better capabilities. I know it only leaves you with $120 and more realistically $99 for speakers, but get something like the MB42X G2 that we were previously looking at. It's $99, and that's gonna leave you wide open to next steps in your future. And the next steps, that could easily be something like adding a small sub that you could cross over with these smaller bookshelves. You could get more out of the bookshelves, you'd get deeper into the frequency with the bass. You can utilize that bass management that's inside the Weem amp, or even just adding more sources. You don't have to go the sub route. You could pick up a turntable, a CD player. Basically, I'm suggesting the Weem Amp Pro for a complete system at the $500 mark because it gives you the most directions to go beyond this. The Duke A5 still gets my nod as it does a great job for the money, but in this case, it just fits better at the $300 price point. I want to keep this series running. Maybe we'll do 1,000, 2,000 next, and that's where you're going to start to see more integrated amps showing up, like this Cambridge CXA81 Mark II, for example. But for today, the $300 to $500 price points, it's a bit difficult, and while I think these are some great options at these price points, mix and match as you see fit, but try to keep in mind the whole concept of where you want your focus to be. At these budgets, it's not gonna be fine dining the whole way. You might have to mix in a few cheeseburgers in between those sirloins, if that makes sense to you. While I have you here, check out the video on 68 HiFi hacks to maybe get the most out of your budget system or any system in general. And the usual, like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It's always appreciated. Let's talk soon. Later.